Ladies and gentlemen, خسته نباشید. Looking at you, looks like it's been a long day, but we're very nearly there. First of all, I want to say a heartfelt thank you to Barbara and to Ali, to Gingko Library and to the British Institute of Persian Studies. For you, Barbara, for conceiving of this idea and persevering with it, and for Ali to organize our gathering here at the British Academy. We've all been caught by this incredible energy that you, Barbara, and Ali exude, two meteors who've come together. And I think if anyone was going to see us through, the synergy of these two fairly hard taskmasters as well will see us through. And by 2019, many of us will be completely grey rather than just partially grey. When a few years ago, at a lunch that extended to an afternoon tea round the corner from British Museum, when Barbara, who had only just recently met, suggested this idea, I thought, why a new Divan? Why retranslate perhaps some of the old popular poems and put them together along with contemporary poets? And when I thought about this idea for longer, I thought, why not? Why not, at this time, take a leaf out of the 19th century scholars and poets' ideals and merge them with the legacy of the poetics of enlightenment we have been discussing at this forum? With a deep bow to Goethe and a nod to acknowledge the Herculean efforts of Joseph von Hammer as translator, we shall take stock of the best and the most representative poetry of a region who for longer than a millennium has produced spellbinding poems. And it still continues to captivate new audiences as it borrows from and lends to other cultures and all the while reinvents itself. At this conference, we have looked at historical figures who accelerated the falling of the scales from the eyes of people who were resigned to accommodating the demands of their absolutist masters. And we alluded to the lifting of the divine shield, which seemed to allow kingly powers to rule with impunity. In equal measures, we need to also flag up the parallel literary movements that emerged from across the Middle East to support the evolution of new forms, concerns, and contexts for poetic expression. This has not always been easy. In a culture where, for example, the beloved, more often than not, is the divine, clad in celestial robes and intoxicated never by cheap plonk, but always by the wine of creation. Nima Yushij, often referred to as the father of modern poetry, who was born a year after the assassination of Nasiruddin Shah and who came to Tehran aged 12 in 1909 to enroll at the Saint Louis School founded in 1862 by the French Lazarist missionaries, was one of several poetic voices who dared challenge the hold that the traditionalists and the formalists had on poetic composition. In his poetic manifesto for Change, he addressed Hafiz, and he said, Hafiza, این چه کید و دروغی است که از زبان می و جام ساقی است. نالی ار تا ابد باورم نیست که بران عشق بازی که باقی است. من بران عاشقم کو رونده است. Oh, Hafiz, What are these fabrications and deceits that gush out from the tongues of the wine and the cupbearer? If you howl till the end of eternity, I won't believe that you love he who is immortal. I love she who is transient. But the irrepressible Hafiz, who knew that tales of love and separation are woven into the DNA of the Persians, and who must have anticipated with premonition Nima's hissy fit, responds, یک قصه بیش نیست غم عشق و وین عجب که از هر زبان که میشنوم نامکرر است. The angst of love is but a mere story, and yet strange that however many tongues related, it's never dull. So, the poets of the East and the West need to touch base again and to share new stories of love and separation and solitude and exile, and tell of the joy of being alive and to strive to be just and to be the balm that soothes scars of brutalities, and to engage with each other's poetry. And the old translations of the gods of the genres need to be spruced up and fathomable for the 21st century readers. And we need to compile these stories in the new Divan, and we need to deploy all the resources of the host languages to make them a new home fit for the special qualities of these original poems. And that will be the task of the translators. And let's not even begin to touch on what their challenges might be. Translators are those who read a text closer than any critic ever does, and walk the minefield of delivering the quintessential features of the original poem, the tone, the subtleties, and the accent of the authorial voice, while all the time trying to gauge the expectations of the foreign reader. But before we worry about these intermediaries, we need to shortlist the 12 poets from each side, whose works will feature in the new Divan. What a task! I don't envy the judges of this poetic fame academy, but we are fortunate because if there was anyone who could, as part of a team, bring order to the Persian side of this madness, it would be Mahmoud Dowlatabadi, whose words you heard. He's one of Iran's most formidable, prolific writers. And I thought for those of you who may not be familiar with him, just a very brief introduction. His repertoire included journalism and acting too, with matinee idol looks. Dowlatabadi was the star performer of many very avant-garde plays, staged not only written by Iranian playwrights, but at that stage in the 1950s, mostly by Arthur Miller and Bertolt Brecht, for example, before he found his niche as a novelist, playwright, essayist, and short story writer. Dowlatabadi was born in 1940 into a family of farmers from northeastern corner of Khorasan, where he worked alongside his father, chopping wood and taking the produce to the market, but all the while reading anything that he could get his hands on. He then made his way to the capital, Tehran. And it is Dowlatabadi's incredible memory of rural communities and the idiosyncrasies of characters who emerge from amongst the forgotten and the disenfranchised that electrify his novels, such as the 10-volume, 3,000-page saga of Kalidar, that traces the lives of a nomadic Kurdish family. as well as the Colonel, a Gingko publication, which is only available in translation in German and Persian. It is still awaiting permission to be published in Persian in Iran. And Dowlatabadi is adamant that he will not give it to any of the publishers outside Iran who would be delighted to produce this book. He would like this book to be published in Iran. And yes, I've got a list of others, his other works, Waiting for Solutions, A Missing Solution, etc. But anyway, there's no shortage of material on him that you can touch up. Crucially, he spent 3 years in jail in Iran in the 70s during the Shah's time. And it was during this time that he conceived of this novel. And it sort of almost guaranteed his sanity because he did not want to miss anything. So upon release, he wrote it down in a frenzy of about 70 days, and that was his final draft. Dowlatabadi is a master wordsmith, and it is his grasp and familiarity with the rich lyrical variations of Persian poetry that makes him an obvious contender amongst the rank of the great and the good who will be trusted with this project. So I think it will be safe, certainly with Mahmoud and Joachim. I think it will be an enjoyable journey. Thank you.